theologians, let's take a minute. I know we didn't have time in class the other day because we went and we were reciting some poems, some lovely poems to our fellow theologians in Mr. Lido's class, which was quite fun and enjoyable. But I wanted to just make sure that you had time to be able to look over your study guide and to be able to give attention to certain areas that you should, to be able to prepare you for your exam. And so let's look at just the overview of the exam. So there's going to be 15 multiple choice questions that will be on there, so not many. So you just have to really be familiar with the terms that are listed on your study guide. And then it'll be 8 response questions and then 1 memory passage. So let's kind of just go through real quickly so you have a general idea of what to expect when you come in. So 15 multiple choice questions from your study guide. You'll see a lot of terms that are on there, and you have to be familiar with most of them. This is from your textbook reading, some that we went over in class. So for example, looking at this particular question, so the world is God or is part of God. So you have to look at the multiple choice that are there and then choose the best option that best corresponds with the definition that is given. And then for the short response questions, so the 8 response questions, I've highlighted these on the study guide so you can give attention to those. For example, looking at the first one, creation, number 1. Think about when we went through Unit 3. So Unit 3, the introduction, that was the question that we had on there. So why study the doctrine of creation? And then we went 3 different aspects on why we should. So the first being the canon, referring to Scripture. We had several passages that were listed on there, and mainly the point being that it's connected with other doctrines. So the doctrine of creation is foundation for other further studies throughout that we find throughout Scripture. So the doctrine of creation is tied to the incarnation. The doctrine of creation is tied through Christology. It's tied to eschatology. So it's tied to numerous facets that we study. And so this is one of the reasons that it's important that we study through it. And second, then we started to look at the creeds. So the creeds are the church. So there are statements by the church where the doctrine of creation informs us about how we should live. It informs us about how we can die with hope. So if you remember the story of Solamia from 2nd Maccabees. So the doctrine of creation informs us also in our worship. So we had examined a passage, an excerpt that was taken from worship within the early church, and this worship tied in the doctrine of creation, especially with the doctrine of ex nihilo. And that's the second term that is listed in your study guide. So the doctrine of ex nihilo informs us in how we are to worship, knowing that God is the one who has brought us into being. So it remembers our position of humility. It also informs us and reminds us about the God that we worship. He is powerful, He is mighty. He has brought us into existence for a specific purpose, and that is that we would join Him. We would be united to Him, and that is the movement. Even from the fall, He's raising us up, and then we continue to ascend into the heavens, or we'll be seated with Him for eternity. So, so that would be one of the questions on there. Another question would have to deal with inspiration. I'll play a little video clip, and then you have to respond to it. Another question would be the Trinity. So if you remember, we didn't quite finish going through that question, particularly with the history. So make sure that you're reviewing the historical aspect of why or how the historical developments contribute to our understanding of the Trinity. And then there'll be a question that ties in with the attributes, and it'll be actually both with the incomutable and the commutable attributes. And it'll probably be one of the Psalms that you have to write out, and then as you write out, you'll identify the different attributes that are contained within that Psalm. And then theologians, that's from Unit 1. So what is a theologian? Be able to answer that. There'll also be some personal reflection with that question. So that one shouldn't be too difficult. And then for the last question, so Islam and Christianity, so know what's the difference between the two? How would you talk with someone who comes from an Islamic or Muslim background? So that's the second part of the exam with those responses. And then there's the memory passage. So there will be one memory passage. That could be one of these 3. So it may be Psalm 1 that I asked you to be able to write out and then explain what are the attributes found within that psalm. Or it may be Psalm 19, So maybe that one that we looked at that was quite long before to be able to go through. Or it may be Psalm 98, so the one that we were currently going through. So it could be either one of those. So prepare to know them all, and then when you come in, maybe you can try to guess which one you think it will be. Take your chances. More than welcome to do so. And then when you come into class, you'll write it out, and then you'll answer the question. And that's pretty much the exam there. And so I hope that that helps you a little bit. And then if you have any questions, feel free to be able to email me. I'll be doing some grading tonight, and then I'll be here early in the morning, and look forward to seeing you soon.